You're listening to Real Crime, the Movie Sleuth podcast.
Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg.
The
Batmobile lost its wheel and the Joker
took ballet.
Maybe we should have done that more in sync with the theme music. I don't know.
Before we start, though, we have to listen to this just one time.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Grandpa? Mom!
What do you want her for? She can't help you. Nobody can. You're scared, ain't you? You should be. Christmas Eve is the scariest damn night of the year. I'd be scared too if I was you. You know what happens Christmas Eve, don't you? You know about Santa Claus.
He brings presents to all good boys and girls.
Your daddy told you that today. Well, I'll tell you something. Santa Claus only brings presents to them that's been good all year. To the ones that ain't done nothing naughty. Naughty. All the other ones. All the naughty ones. He punishes.
All right.
Boy, wonder what this show's about tonight.
Yeah, I wonder.
We typically try to keep our topic announcements so later in the show.
We just thought we'd give you a little tease before the proceedings begin.
Yeah. Little tickle around the rim before we get into it.
Punish.
This is Real Crime.
Garbage Day.
This is Real Crime, episode number 68. Ho, ho, ho. Ho, ho, ho. Oh, boy. We should really have a party for the next show.
They call him
should.
Sandy Claus.
Sandy Claus.
Well, we should discuss that, Chris. Seriously. Let's discuss what we're going to do for the inaugural, well, not inaugural, but, the next episode.
Things could get nasty for episode 69.
Number 69. Oh, my God. I can't wait.
It might just be noises happening. Some splooshing, some splashing.
Oh, God.
A little gagging noise.
It'll be like I woke up early the day I died. Just 2 hours of grunts and groans.
Yes.
The movie.
So, yeah, got a really interesting show tonight. However, Mr. Chris, leading off, you have a bunch of stuff you want to talk about tonight. So, the floor
is all mine.
It's all
so
Chris's.
first off, we want to remind everybody it is the Christmas season. When you're doing your shopping, visit projectorscreen.com.
Yeah.
Also, use our link on the top of themoviesleuth.com to do your Amazon shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, make sure to visit the Flint Institute of Art's website to check out their weekly film series. So now that I got all of that sponsor shit out of the way.
Well, no, but that film series is fantastic, though. I've checked that out. I've checked that out. It's really cool. Visit that.
Yes.
Seriously, it's important.
So, in news this week, Ridley Scott has officially finished the reshoots for All the Money in the World with Christopher Plummer.
Heard about that.
And
They already have new trailers out.
Yeah, and it's going to be released in time for its December 22nd release date. But in relation to that, it's actually going to be screening this week for Golden Globe voters, just as planned, which is shocking that they were able to do this in a matter of about 3 to 4 weeks to completely cut out all the Kevin Spacey scenes, reshoot everything with Christopher Plummer.
His original choice, too, by the way.
Yeah, and get it ready for theaters within
That's
a
aggressive, man. Really aggressive.
That's insane.
Ridley Scott also turned 80 this week, if memory serves. Or was that last week?
I think it was last week. But he also announced that, the next Alien movie is not going to have aliens in it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was reading some stuff on that today, and that's kind of a real kick in the groin, in my opinion.
Well,
It really is.
so was the last movie.
Yeah.
But it had aliens in it, though.
Right.
It had an alien.
Well, yeah. But it had other cool stuff, though, too. Mm-hmm. If you're into...
You're into fingering...
Yes. I'll do the fingering and
I've tried fighting this fight, and I'm just never going to win.
I watched Covenant again last week.
And you hated it just as much.
I just can't get into it. It doesn't matter. No matter how hard I try to convince myself to like this movie, I can't like it. I actually went out and I told myself I was not going to spend money on the Blu-ray, and I spent money on the Blu-ray.
I bought it.
And I still don't enjoy this movie.
Same. I watched it again and liked it even less than the first time. Like, if you really break it down, it's like The Force Awakens of the Alien series, and that it's repeating all the beats of the first movie. And
it really is.
And that's not a knock on The Force Awakens, just an observation. And for what it's worth, Force Awakens in its way is an infinitely better film than Alien Covenant.
Oh, it is an infinitely better movie.
Way better.
Yeah. On that note, The Last Jedi is being released next week. I luckily get to see it Monday night.
Fuck you.
I'm erect already. And the sexual allegations continue to flow from Hollywood.
What's the latest one?
Here's our tabloid edition of the show.
I knew about Danny Masterson for a little bit.
Yeah, Danny Masterson was fired from the Netflix series The Ranch today over sexual allegations, which this has been kind of floating out there for a little bit.
Today was his last day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they canned his ass.
I heard about it for a bit.
Yeah, it's just fucking crazy, dude. It's like, if you're a man in any type of power in Hollywood right now, man, like, it's just coming out all over the place.
But you know what? I mean, I really want to think that, because we all agree that this behavior is despicable, disgusting.
Absolutely.
There's no excuse for it. But I really believe that there is still I would think there's even a larger population in Hollywood of men who walk the line. You know,
I agree.
They don't pull that shit. I mean, what's being portrayed now, and I mean, it's not like it's anything new. Everybody's kind of had this vision of Hollywood, like, well, it's where the men can just bang anything they want because they're in the power or whatever. And I don't think that's true. I mean, yeah, it's true in some ways, in some aspects, with some people, but not everybody.
The stuff about gay sexual assault and pedophilia in Hollywood, that's been the real...
that's scary.
That's been the real scary revelation of this whole thing. I mean, the stuff about mistreating women in Hollywood's been known for a long time. This new stuff is, it's alien to me.
Well, I actually heard they were talking about this at length on NPR this morning, and they had a person on there that was discussing all the sexual stuff that's coming out. And he's like, Harvey Weinstein will actually be given us another chance. He said in about 3 years, Weinstein will come back. He'll make more connections with new people, and somehow he will come out of all this. And he said numerous other actors and actresses they'll find a way to come out of this by making public apologies and all that. But he said Kevin Spacey is the one character who's done. Yeah. There will not be any reprieve for him, because all these other people, it had to do with adults, and the fact that Spacey's whole thing was with a child.
Yeah.
That he will not recover from this, that there will not be a second chance, that his career is functionally over at this point.
There was a story that cropped up, I think today, where Gabriel Byrne was talking about working with them on The Usual Suspects, and apparently production was shut down for 2 days because he had sexually assaulted a young actor. And they didn't use those terms on set, but people figured it out, and people would joke, oh, that's just Kevin, and he didn't realize the full extent.
Kill.
Yeah, he didn't realize the full extent of his abuses until many years later. But yeah, even on The Usual Suspects, this shit was going on.
Yep. And then in relation to all of this, Bryan Singer has been fired from Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen biopic that was supposed to be coming out. And today his offices at Fox were completely shut down. They were totally removed from the Fox lot.
Oh, wow.
So he was not only fired from the Freddie Mercury movie, they removed him from Fox. He is no longer part of that production company.
He's going down. He's next.
Well, we've heard for years.
The question I have, though, is has anybody been arrested yet?
No.
There's been no arrest yet.
No, but
I was rhetorical because I already fucking knew the answer to it.
Yeah. But nobody's going to be arrested for, sexual acts against women or adults, because technically they're not fully breaking the law, but they're just doing something that's morally wrong.
It's morally
a lot
shit.
of them fall outside of the statute of limitations is the thing. They need to, in order to make an arrest, they need to pin a case on one of these characters that falls within the statute of limitations, and so far
Right.
most of them have fallen outside of it.
It's
So,
insane.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this. It's scary.
It is. Moving on from the National Enquirer edition of our news stories, Baby Driver is officially getting a sequel. They're writing it right now, which would be really cool because that movie definitely deserves a sequel. That movie's a blast. Has everybody here seen it?
I have not seen
Yes.
it. I didn't see it.
yes,
I'm going to give you a copy of it tonight
I
to
finally
check
picked
out.
it up the other day.
Thank you.
And then I'm not sure what's going on, but I think there might be a little more sexual allegations going on because
Jesus Christ,
John
man.
Travolta's Gotti movie has been dropped from Lionsgate 10 days before release, and they've not said why yet.
Well, there's been stories about Travolta for years, man.
Yeah, so they gave no details. They just said the film has been officially knocked off of the schedule 10 days before it's supposed to premiere. Kind of crazy. So
We will find out, I guess.
yeah, we will. In new releases this week, I can't talk. The Shape of Water is expanding to national release. I, Tanya, which I've seen, and it's fucking amazing. Probably one of the best movies I've seen this year. Goes into limited release, and The Disaster Artist is also going to wide release this week. So,
Outstanding. I want to see The Disaster Artist.
me too.
I have to see that.
The thing is, I wonder how many people who are going to see The Disaster Artist have seen The Room, because I feel like with that film, you kind of need to know The Room before going in, or else it won't have the same vibe about it.
I think this is going to be the same thing as like when the Doors movie came out. A lot of younger people hadn't seen the Doors, but after they saw the movie, they really got into listening to the music.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be one of those types of
Well,
things.
The Room has become a cultural meme.
Yeah.
It really has. So I don't think. I mean, I agree with you 100%, Andrew. I think it would add to the viewing of this film.
I mean, I think most people have just seen YouTube clips of it. And
Well, that's
have
what I'm saying. Yeah.
sat through it.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to see snippets of it. It's another to experience it in the theater with an audience clapping during the sex scenes and throwing plastic spoons at the screen during key moments, chanting "Go, go, go" every time the camera pans across the Golden Gate Bridge. And in one of the latest screenings that I went to, when Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero are playing football, they not only counted every catch, but people actually threw footballs in the theater.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So, like, you know, I feel like you kind of need to at least have a taste of that experience once before diving into the
Oh, you're
Disaster
right.
Artist.
You're right. You're
So,
right.
I don't know.
But I think this is going to raise awareness of The Room quite a bit.
Oh God.
And
Yeah.
Tommy's going to make millions upon millions more dollars off of,
Yeah.
you know, newer releases of that movie. There's going to be special editions. There's going to be all kinds of crazy shit coming out.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, he released the Blu-ray himself through his own company.
Yeah.
And he did do some new interviews for it, but he did this show called The Neighbors, and he played the pilot for it at the last Maynard screening where I got to meet him. And it was awful. The whole audience geared up for The Room, sat through it dead silent, did not know what to make of it. And Entertainment Weekly gave it an F.
Oh,
Member
nice.
reserves.
God.
Yeah. So
Yeah, he's just a strange person. Very, very strange person.
he also did some YouTube show called The Tommy Wee Show, where he was abducted by aliens and forced to play video games, and he's playing Dead Space 2, and he's like, "Yeah, this is dumb, huh?" Like, this is dead on arrival. Like, it's
God.
nowhere near as funny as he thinks it is. So, I don't know. I agree. Maybe he'll make more money off of The Disaster Artist, but he's tried other projects after it, and they didn't go anywhere.
All he needs is this one, though. You know,
Yeah.
if he can just keep selling copies of The Room, from what I understand, he's a multimillionaire from that movie alone.
Yeah.
From touring and, you know, supporting the showings of that one movie.
One shit.
Well, he does the main art at least once a year. He comes to the main art.
I think
to
he's done
show
it twice this year now.
Oh,
I'm
really?
pretty sure, yeah.
And of course, the music box, he's always there. And So, but when they were screening The Room nationwide, to promote the disaster artist, I thought, is there going to be any plastic spoon tossing, or people just going to be sitting in the theater watching it like any other movie because they don't know the audience?
I think they're just going to be sitting there
participation
watching
factor.
the movie.
Yeah, they're just going to be watching it.
All right. So, in suggested viewings for this week, since we're going to be talking about a few Christmas horror movies, my suggested viewing this week is Better Watch Out, which is a really cool kind of twisted horror flick that's available. I believe it's on Netflix now. I saw it a few weeks ago. It's really, really good. So, check out Better Watch Out. Andrew.
Does it need to be Christmas related?
No, it can be whatever you want.
Okay, last night I watched the Arrow video Blu-ray of JD's Revenge, and I highly recommend that one. It looked like it was going to be like Abby, the blaxploitation Exorcist ripoff, and I was surprised how much it was a classy horror film that really tried to deal with the subject of sexual abuse and how it tried to deal with the idea of demonic possession as a gateway to unfinished business, ghost stories, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like any other demonic possession horror film I've seen. It was completely in its own league, and it was neither really a horror film or a blaxploitation film. It was kind of in its own unique league by mixing these disparate genres together. So I recommend JD's Revenge. It's on Blu-ray.
Cool.
What do you got for us, Scott?
Oh, I got a doozy. No, Raul gave me the Terry Kath Experience, A Daughter's Journey this week to review, and I'm glad he did. I'm not a big Chicago fan. We were talking about this briefly before the show.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Chicago fan. However, and I said this in my review, I'm like, a really great music documentary, whether it's on a band or whatever it might be, will be something that's going to inspire you to really go, in this case, look at the catalog of a band's work or an artist's work, namely Terry Kath from this documentary. And, while I've already said that I'm not a Chicago fan, I'm probably going to become one pretty quick here because this movie really got me into the music of their stuff. I remember hearing Chicago growing up, and I was like, man, there's too many horns, man. I can't deal with this shit.
Yeah.
But it works now because I'm older. And I'm like, I was really getting into the music as I was watching this documentary. Fantastic, really, a real heart-wrenching documentary, too. So highly recommend that if you're a Chicago fan or even if you're not a Chicago fan. Check out the Terry Kath Experience, A Daughter's Journey.
Sounds like it has the power to turn a non-fan into a fan.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's it, I think that's what it's going to do for me. I'm going to be listening to a lot of Chicago this week, probably. Mm-hmm. Try to understand the discography and the music, which is what I like doing with these things. Mm-hmm. I don't want to run on with this too long, but I like doing these, the music docs for a reason. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I watched that it's stuff that I'm familiar with, but I've found myself gravitating more towards documentaries about artists and bands that I don't know anything about because, you really learn something then.
Well, I was never a fan of the Eagles. I'm still really not a fan of the Eagles, but I watched that 4-hour documentary on the Eagles, and it's one of the most interesting things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And you really kind of understand their personalities a lot more, where they were always like, Glenn Fry and Don Henley are like total assholes and they're pricks and blah, blah, blah. You could actually really see how they developed their art through that movie. Yeah. And now I'm not really an Eagles fan, but I can appreciate
even
them
if you don't
more.
like
It's
it,
the
you're
same
going to
thing.
appreciate it more. So that's a great documentary to see. So highly recommend that.
So we're talking about some Christmas horror movies tonight. And we know there's a ton of them out there, but we're not going to be able to hit on all of them. So we're going to concentrate on quite a few and throw in an extra few here or there. Just to kind of fill this out a little bit. So the first one...
You're driving the bus on this one.
Yeah,
I fuck this up every week when I bring my list in. So we're going to go with you this week.
The first one that... It's probably the first real Christmas horror movie I ever saw. Yeah. And one that we can probably actually talk about here for quite a bit is Gremlins. Mm. I mean, this is it's horror at the core. Still has that like Spielberg type feel to it, but it's a horror movie at the core.
Well, the nostalgia factor on this is like just through the roof, man. I don't know anybody in our age bracket that just wasn't like attached to this film when it came out. I mean, it was just one of those ones. I mean, come on, the friggin' oh my God,
Gizmo.
And that's the cutest thing ever made.
Make away.
It's the cutest thing ever made.
Billy.
I mean, really.
Yeah, thanks to Howie Mandel.
I mean, come on, you really that creature was the cutest thing I think any of us had ever seen. I mean, I can't really think of anything that was really that looked like that, like Gizmo, as far as a character, right?
And the whole premise of the idea that these cute furry little creatures that they could turn into these horrific monsters was a great premise for a horror movie.
And it was a real surprise. I mean, how that unfolded, because you're like, well, okay, he's got this cute little, and we all wanted one of those things. Like, oh, but fucking that like.
Well, we all wanted one, unless we
fed them after midnight,
or dumped them in water. You know, because then well,
they multiply with water.
The fan. I just remember seeing this movie in the theaters the first time, and just being amazed. I mean, the visual effects to this day still
it looks
hold
so
up.
good.
They look great.
Goddamn microwave scene. Oh,
that was one of those movies, another one of those Spielberg productions, including Poltergeist, and then finally Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, that really tested the waters as far as the gap between PG and R. They all got PG ratings, but the MPA for a long time slapped Gremlins with an R over the microwave scene you're referring to.
Yeah, that was really gory. That was really disturbing.
I remember Roger Ebert joked in his review, what if a kid sees that and decides to stick a cat in the microwave, see if the same thing happens?
Well, it's true. I mean, kids are impressionable, and that movie was geared towards young children. It really was.
It was geared towards young children, but there are so many horrific elements in this movie. Like when she's talking about how her dad died.
You read my mind.
I mean, seriously, I remember hearing that for the first time.
Then we
as a
noticed
kid,
the smell.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
The dad got caught in the chimney trying to be Santa Claus.
And that's how she found out there's no Santa Claus.
That's a very horrifying thing to hear when you're a child. And it's still kind of amazing that they snuck these things into a movie that we thought was geared towards children, and then it just goes balls out fucking crazy with the gremlins taking over the town, and people are brutalized in this in the town by the
Some of
gremlins.
them deserve their fates, like Mrs. Deagle definitely deserved her fate. Polly Holiday as the old miserly woman of the town. That had a very early Corey Feldman in it too.
Yes.
Yeah, it did.
And it also had a delicious Phoebe Cates in it too.
Who was the one who told the horror story about there being no Santa Claus?
I really wish she would come back and visit me at my house on Christmas Day.
It's funny because like the whole chimney thing you're talking about, it seems so feasible when we were children because we heard the story of Santa Claus. And like when Santa Claus came down the chimney, that was just like the rule, right? Santa Claus came down the chimney at my parents' house, and we didn't even have a goddamn chimney. So it all seems so feasible. And now we were just talking about chimneys before the show here about the chimney at my house, and I looked down that thing and I'm like, who the hell's gonna fit down that thing?
Right.
No, it's just a little house.
He uses magical dust though.
One thing.
Okay.
One thing that Gremlins used really effectively is how it took popular Christmas songs that were so beloved and everybody remembered them fondly and used them ironically for horror. Like Johnny Mathis' "Do You Hear What I Hear" comes on, and the only reason we know it comes on the soundtrack is because one of the gremlins downstairs turned the record player on. So that creates unease, but all we're doing is hearing the track as is. We're hearing this beloved Christmas track, but it's creating tension and unease within the viewer.
And playing over a scene that's horrifying. That's scary. And it's not supposed to be scary at all.
And it goes back to being funny again. Like they use a lot of cartoon sounds. They do that even more in Gremlins 2 with all the Looney Tunes sound effects.
Yup.
I suppose they should have known that this wasn't going to be for kids, given that it was from the director of Piranha.
Yeah, it was Dante, correct?
in The Howling. Yeah, Joe Dante, who sadly is
He did
dropped off the map.
The Howling?
He also did The Howling and Piranha. And he did the segment in Twilight Zone, the movie, with the little boy who has all the powers.
Oh, dude, that's one of my favorite parts of that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy
you can
crap.
tell that that's from the guy who did Gremlins watching it, because it has a similarly zany, could it be a cartoon for kids? Could it be a horror film for adults? Kind of a tightrope walk that it treads.
I mean, it's totally effed up that they did take, these cute little furry creatures, spin them into these evil lizard-like little gremlins, and they base it all around Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, how bad is that? Like, your Christmas is fucked now because the gremlins are coming for you.
The guy who wrote it, created the characters, Chris Columbus, as fate would have it, years later would direct the first 2 Home Alone movies.
Oh, that's right.
Chris Columbus.
Which Home Alone's a horror movie in itself.
In a way, yeah.
Well, I mean,
It's a home invasion movie.
it's interesting.
Or I pump your guts full of lead.
Yeah.
It's interesting that and I didn't know there was that tie. But if you look at how both those films kind of move, though, they do have that kind of, in Home Alone, you're defeating evil, kind of the zaniness, all these goofy things that happen, and you see the same type of stuff that happens in Gremlins. It's a little bit more horrific in Gremlins. It's more brutal.
Home Alone is pretty violent too, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's got that same zaniness, that madcap type thing.
With Gremlins, it's a little more realistic. Like, people actually get hurt, and granted, they do in Home Alone as well. But it's got more of a Laurel and Hardy or Three Stooges sort of a comic vibe to it, where they get the shit kicked out of them, but they dust themselves off and
get up for more.
Their hair standing up on end, or their face is all dirty or something.
Yeah.
And they just run away.
But
very cartoony.
We watch Home Alone almost every Christmas at some point. Realistically, it is a type of horror movie. I mean, a child is left home by himself to his own devices.
Which is
and these evil people are trying to break into his house, seeking to harm him.
Yeah.
And you've got the whole, we find out later that, that none of it's true, but you've got the old man with the shovel. They keep playing that for scares, and then he's afraid of the fireplace in the basement. That fireplace is trying to eat him or something. Or
the wood burner in the basement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So they definitely have some horror elements, and he gets scared playing the movie within a movie. Angels with Filthier Souls, or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah, because whenever we watch that every year, I'm like, this is a lot scarier than really it should be.
It's more realistic horror, though. I mean,
yeah. I know it's comedy. It's comedy for families, but
darker.
There is a creepiness to it, definitely.
Daniel Stern and Pesci together, dude, they are some fucking creepers.
Yeah,
some serious creepers.
It's all right. Gremlins, we beat the shit out of Gremlins. What else you got on your list there, Mr. Chris?
Silent Night, Deadly Night, which spawned many, many sequels. But this is another one for me that is on repeat every year at Christmas time. The original. This is like perfection of mixing exploitation with slasher with holiday cheer and rape. I mean, what more could you want from Christmas?
It pissed everybody off when it came out. It
was
really controversial when it came out, especially because of the poster and the image of Santa Claus
coming up out of the chimney
with an axe or something.
Yeah.
People were not happy about that movie when it came out. And funny thing was that there were a lot of people that ganged up on it that wound up getting involved in the sequels. Like Mickey Rooney was bashing the first movie in the press, and I think he wound up playing the villain in part 4 or 5.
Yes, he did.
Years later. Way to eat your words, buddy.
Yeah, but Silent Night, Deadly Night, it's corny, it's cheesy in a lot of spots, but there's some real brutality in this one too. Like the slaughter of the parents and the rape scene at the beginning on the side of the road. Yeah. Like that is really It's pretty nasty.
And doesn't the guy dressed in Santa Claus outfit rape the main character's mom in front of him or something?
Yeah, so basically, no, well, I mean, we're not going to spoil at this point. His parents are killed. He ends up being sent to a foster home and is, mistreated by the nun that runs the foster home. And then as he becomes an adult, he ends up working at a store and starts fucking killing people because he's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it follows many typical slasher tropes, but again, it's very exploitation based too.
Mm-hmm.
I love this movie. I hate to say it, but I
It's
love
been
it.
so many years since I've seen this flick.
Yeah.
Hard to say which one I prefer, it or the sequel, because the sequel's so funny.
The sequel's funny, but they switch who plays the main character too.
And they repurpose a majority of footage from the first movie, too, which is pretty lazy, but there you have it.
But I think the nun character, I can't remember what her name is right now. I believe that she comes back. I'm almost positive it's the same lady playing her.
Mm.
So
Silent Night, Deadly Night. Thank you.
I just remember in part 2 him pulling a gun out on some dude and saying, "Garbage day."
Yeah.
And shooting him dead.
Yep.
And there's another part near the end where he's about to axe somebody to death, dressed as Santa Claus. He's got the axe over his head and he exclaims, "Moo!" I shit you not. He actually says that line.
The only one that I have on Blu-ray is the first one because, like I said, it's one of my favorite horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to move on from this one, I think another great Christmas horror movie is Black Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
So I haven't seen that one.
Definitely.
This, it's basically takes place at college, right? It's a sorority house, correct?
Mm-hmm. Keir Dullea, I think, doesn't he play the killer in it?
I believe so.
The actor who played Dave Bowman in 2001.
Yes.
And this is you'll find this interesting. It's from Bob Clark, who years later would direct A Christmas Story.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And it has all the techniques that you've come to expect from him. Like, remember the wide angle shot in A Christmas Story where Ralphie's sitting on his lap and the camera's spinning around? There's a shot like that in Black Christmas where the killer's climbing up a hedge on the side of the house with Christmas lights, and it's in that same kind of wide angle point of view shot. So you can tell it's the same director. It just, the genres are different. One is, family comedy, the other's horror.
Well, this was remade also. I still think the original is probably the better of the two, but the remake is not bad. Now, what's funny is the guy that you said, Keir
Dullea.
Yes, he's in it. In the original, Olivia Hussey is in it. Margot Kidder, John
wow.
Saxon. Like, this is like awesome casting.
Yeah, totally.
It's been a while since I've seen this one too, but this was probably another movie that was one of the originators of the slasher genre. This came before like Halloween, and this came before Friday the 13th.
Oh, almost a decade before.
Yeah, and this kind of those movies were based a lot on what happened in this movie. So, but yeah, Black Christmas is awesome. All right, somebody else throwing out there.
Andrew?
This is going to be pretty obvious to everyone. Krampus.
All right. Didn't like it. But no, I'm not being a dick. Why did you like it, Andrew?
Well, besides it being in similar vein to Gremlins, it being a holiday horror comedy of sorts, I thought it was a good fable. I thought it had something to say, about being grateful for the things you have in life, even if Christmas for some people, getting together with family members is a headache because of everybody's differences. I kind of like that vibe that it had. I liked the psycho killer gingerbread man, and I heard that the director of Krampus is slated to direct the remake of Gremlins, which we
That's
talked
what I
about.
heard too.
I think he's a good fit for it. What do you think, Chris?
I have not watched this movie yet, so I
Krampus?
cannot comment. Nope.
It's a brutal film too. I mean, there was a lot of comedic elements, like you were saying, Andrew, but it did have some, and some of the special effects. I mean, they were practical. One of the ones that sticks out in my mind is when they were actually out in the street, and the cars are just being shot up. They're just kind of, I mean, and we've seen that a million times.
Yeah.
But in the context, I thought it was very effective. It was a movie Amber wanted me to watch, and I mean, I thought it was cool. It was all right, but I didn't like it that much. I don't know. It just didn't. You know, as far as how do I say this without being? Go ahead.
Oh, I saw it in the theater when it came out, and I liked it so much I went back for more. I think it's a good holiday horror comedy. Not quite as good as Gremlins, but it's spoken of the same breath, and the idea of Krampus has existed for years. There haven't really been any serious attempts at trying to make a movie out of it.
Well, it was one of those things that, I mean, that's one thing I noticed with this movie is it did raise awareness for something that has always been there, right? I mean, there's always been stories. I've read plenty of articles and stuff over the years that, you know, not that this is related all that much, but, you know, the real Santa Claus, like the historical fabled Santa Claus, was not nearly as jolly as how he's made out to be now by our friends at the Coca-Cola Company.
Well, in Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas, we actually get a glimpse of that Santa Claus you're referring to. The creepy, violent Santa Claus that will beat the living shit out of non-believers with a cane before going ho ho ho. This actually happens in Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas.
Yeah.
Kirk Cameron is a horror story himself.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. Fuck you, Kirk Cameron.
But Krampus did raise that kind of awareness of that. Not like it's some movement we have to be a part of now, but after that movie, I noticed, you know, a lot of stuff was coming. You know, you were seeing more things being put out there about, well, the history of this, the history of that. People were actually getting interested in this fable. So that's kind of a cool result of that. Just didn't blow my mind, though. It just wasn't, you know, I'm a dick.
I thought it was fun. What can I say?
Sometimes all it has to be is fun, though.
No.
You know? Seriously.
Yeah. So, yeah, that Krampus. That was Krampus, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Tip your bartenders.
So, Andrew, earlier, you know, I'm looking at a couple other Christmas horror lists here, and I did see one that you mentioned earlier pop up, Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes. That's definitely a horror film. I don't care what anyone says. Eyes Wide Shut is terrifying. It happens to be set during the holidays to, you know, exploit all the surreal Christmas lights. There's a eerie sort of dichotomy going on between the wholesomeness of Christmas and the depravity of the underworld, which the main character continues to immerse himself in. Even the ending takes place at an FAO Schwartz. Spoiler free, it takes place in FAO Schwartz. You know, they're shopping, you know, there's Christmas music playing, and it hits you with this final note that you're really not sure how to take, and it transcends the holiday it takes place in. But I definitely remember that being a horror film that happened to take place during the holidays.
I absolutely adore Eyes Wide Shut. I've probably watched this movie 50 times.
Same.
And I think it's, you know, a great end note to Kubrick's career. It really is. The character development in the story is amazing. And honestly, I really like Tom Cruise.
Oh, he's great in that.
This is one of his best performances, I think, because he's not playing your typical Tom Cruise character. He's not running anywhere. He's, you know, it's not a sci-fi movie. He's an actual living, breathing person in this movie, and I love it. And I love Nicole Kidman too.
She triggers the whole thing and might have more behind those eyes than she's telling. Like at the beginning of the movie, I think the infamous aristocratic satanic orgy, I think they hint more than once throughout the movie that she may herself have been involved in one of those gatherings, and it just builds that much more unease every time Tom Cruise is around her in the film.
And she's so beautiful in this movie too. 100%. So, you know, Scrooge.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
visited by 3 ghosts.
This is I've seen some pretty scary versions of Scrooge in my day. Yes,
Yeah.
there's some animated ones and there's some goofy ones,
Mm-hmm.
but like one of the older black and white ones?
There's one with Alistair Sim from the mid-50s that was a British production. There's so many back in that day, it'd be difficult to pick them out, but that's the most well-known one from that era.
But yeah, I mean, this is a very kind of scary story that you're going to be revisited by 3 spirits. They're basically going to fuck you up all
Well,
night long.
It raises a lot of questions. The story itself raises a lot of questions on what would it be like if I wasn't here? I mean, I don't know any other nice way to say it, right?
It's a Wonderful Life definitely tackled that.
Yeah.
And
But the thought, and that's what the story itself, where it puts people at, and where Scrooge is at, by himself in his bed, being visited by spirits. I don't know of too many things that would terrify people even more, right? However, these spirits, while they're macabre and they're dark in their own right, they are trying to help this man, right? They care about this man. They love this man. So there's a horrific element to this that's terrifying, right? Where any of us, if you were to think if any of us were to, if I was Scrooge, if you were Scrooge, Chris, or anybody, right? How would you respond to a situation like that if you were in bed, getting ready to jerk off, to go to sleep, and here comes a fucking spirit to go, hey, dude, you're fucking it up. You're blowing it, right? Your initial reaction, you're going to shit your pants. You're going to freak out, right? We've watched enough ghost films to be programmed where the idea of being confronted by a spirit will scare you to half to death. So
there's also some adaptations of A Christmas Carol and Scrooge that you were referring to that are more frightening than others for some of the deviations they make. Notably, the Ronald Neame adaptation with Albert Finney as Scrooge. He's confronted with his headstone by the Ghost of Christmas Future.
I remember that.
But in this version, he looks and sees that it's a big hole where the headstone should be. He turns around and the Ghost of Christmas Future is a skeleton with his arms outstretched, and you hear the organ blaring when he turns around. It just makes your hair stand on end, and he falls back screaming down and down and down and down into hell until, like, you see the ground becoming brighter beneath him, and he actually does end up in hell. And it's a whole hell sequence with, the cave rocks and the the demons covered in sweat carrying Scrooge's mile-long chain. Another frightening one is the George C. Scott version, which doesn't really send him to hell per se, but the Ghost of Christmas Future and the opening interaction with Jacob Marley is particularly creepy in the George C. Scott version because they use a lot of industrial sounds as he's ascending the stairs and a lot of disembodied voices and echoes, which really, watching it, when I played the game Silent Hill 2, the survival horror game, I couldn't help but think of George C. Scott Scrooge when the main character is ascending these empty stairs. It's totally dark, and there's these really eerie sounds coming at him from all angles.
Well, I even remember, like, when my kids saw the Disney animated version that was out a few years ago. I think Jim Carrey was he Scrooge in that?
He was.
I remember my 2 oldest kids being kind of young when that came out, and they were frightened. They were scared. Like, that's not a fun movie to watch, Dad. This is scary. I don't want to see stuff about ghosts coming to visit me at night, tell me about everything I've done wrong.
I thought they kind of overdid it to some degree. Also, like, didn't it have a skeletal Santa Claus with his face coming on?
It had all kinds of very, very scary things in it.
Yeah.
So, Scrooge, Christmas Carol, that is definitely a horrifying movie.
Scrooged, you can make the argument also, even though it's a comedy with Bill Murray, the first ghost that he meets it's pretty scary. You know, he's holding him outside of the window, and his wrist is breaking off.
Yeah.
That was pretty creepy from what I remember. And the Ghost of Christmas Future, the way it's in an elevator, and it's like a ghostly televised image of Bill Murray's face with a skull behind it. I remember that being pretty creepy.
All right.
You're like, all right.
So what else? What else we got in the way of holiday horror?
The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Well, that's a gift. Yeah.
Yeah, it's technically, it's not really horror, but it's musical comedy, but there are definitely horror elements to it, correct?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I think when Jack Skellington is delivering all the presents, and the kid holds up a severed head.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is creepy.
I mean, it's Tim Burton, so you're always going to get some horror and some genre elements to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one, you know, it's not straight horror by any means, but it's got the elements there for sure.
I think it was a real game changer, too, for a lot of people. The Night Before Christmas. There's people I know when that originally came out that they watched that every month still.
Oh, yeah.
My sister is one of them, for example. She worships that film. She just never stops watching it. I never really asked her why, but she has more Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise or collectibles around her house. It's insane. She's a huge fan of that movie. I've seen it a handful of times, and I don't know if it's just my thing. Beautifully done.
Well, not technically in the horror genre, but it's directed by Tim Burton, and it's a bit of a stretch. You could make the argument that Batman Returns falls into this category as well.
I saw that on some lists.
Yeah? Of Christmas horror films?
Yeah.
Because it's gothic horror, the opening segment of the Penguin's birth and how he was cast into the icy waters with the penguins, and even the feel of it is very like Nightmare Before Christmas. I'd almost consider it to be a companion piece to Nightmare Before Christmas in some ways.
A lot of what he does is very repetitious, Burton. A lot of themes carry over from film to film to film, like Johnny Depp.
Uses the same actor in every movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Edward Scissorhands also kind of is a holiday sort of gothic fable.
That's true.
The guy likes setting gothic fables in Christmas for some reason.
So what about Jack Frost? I've only seen this movie one time.
Oh, the straight-to-video thing?
Yeah, it released in 97 about the killer that basically gets transposed or transformed into a killing snowman that uses his nose to kill people.
I just remember seeing...
Now I remember why I didn't see this.
Yeah.
I just remember seeing a poster image of a snowman. Well, it wasn't a poster image. It was on the back of the VHS box. A snowman in the shower with a naked woman. Like, really?
But that don't make any fucking
How does that even work?
Yeah. That don't make no sense.
So...
Why would you do that?
Why?
No.
Because why not, I guess.
So
Try anything.
I mean, really, if you think about it, Santa Claus, is kind of scary. That's kind of horrific in general. This dude's going to come down your chimney and bring you presents. That freaks me out. I remember being a kid and actually being scared that, Santa Claus is going to come into my room and,
well,
touch me.
one of my favorite childhood stories. Jesus Christ! You just made him into a pedo. Way to go, dude.
Santa Claus is a pedo.
On that thread, Chris. Yeah, I had this fear of Santa Claus also, right? My parent, and not really because of Santa Claus, because of my parents put this into my brain when I was very young, and they said, "Look, if you're out of your bed in the middle of the night and Santa Claus sees you out of your bed, then he's going to take all the presents away. You're not going to get any presents for Christmas, right?" And this one particular year, I was very young. I'm laying in bed in the middle of the night, and I got to pee. And I'm like, well, if I get up out of bed and Santa Claus happens to see me going to go pee, then I'm not going to get any presents. Pretty solid kid logic, right? So what do you do in a situation like that? You piss the bed. It's as simple as that, right? You pissed the bed. So I pissed the bed. My parents wake me up bright and early the next morning, and they say, "Hey, what is this? You pissed the bed. What's wrong with you?" And I said, "Well, you said I couldn't get out of bed. Because if Santa saw me, I wouldn't get any presents." So I trumped their card that one time when I was very young. The point is there is some kind of fear there, right? What your parents instilled in you. Santa Claus drank beer too when I was younger. He would drink a beer in my house. I don't get that. I didn't get that when I was younger. But I'd always find an empty beer can at the table.
We always left milk and cookies out for the guy.
Well, yeah, that too. But there was a beer there sometimes also. So Santa would have a beer in the middle of the night. That character itself, and I guess that's the reason that if you look at Christmas horror lists, there really is a lot of movies. There's a ton of movies that are around Christmas horror, namely around this Santa Claus character. And I find it interesting, even though, and I'll say I haven't seen the bulk of them, just because I don't know. Christmas horror is something that's like, okay, it's just
very niche.
It's kind of weird,
Yes.
It's very niche. It's only now starting to gain more popularity.
Yeah.
But when it was first introduced first introduced to the mainstream, I should say, with Silent Night, Deadly Night, people rejected it. It took time for it to catch on as
because I don't think
viable
people
genre.
like the idea of we're turning this.
Well, there you go.
This innocent character that sneaks in through your chimney using magic. They're turning this innocent character into something evil, a murderer, a slasher, a killer.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of freaks a lot of people out.
It shits all over your childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does. Because we a young child the whole year revolves around Christmas.
Kids are impressionable. They don't need to have that
ruined for them.
Right.
Yeah, the whole year revolves around Christmas, like I said. So
So
I want this. Well, you'll get it for Christmas.
So I get the outcry, but at the same time, I think things like Krampus, even though I know you don't like it, or some of the other horror films we mentioned, there can be a valuable lesson to be gained from them. That's not just pure shock and awe. No,
I'm sure that. Yeah, I know there's stuff in there that you can get from that.
Mm-hmm.
I think just the whole Santa Claus character and this juxtaposition of murderer or some type of evil, horrible thing that's this character is doing now. That's what screws people up, right? And it is a disturbing thought. Like, I don't know.
You're turning something that's supposed to be peaceful and about giving and sharing into
a jolly old man,
pain, in rape, in pure nastiness.
A jolly old man.
A jolly old man now wants to kill you.
Merry fucking Christmas.
Merry fucking Christmas. Another one I saw a few years ago, while it's not necessarily a Christmas horror movie revolving around Santa or Krampus or anything like that, it's this movie called ATM, not ass to mouth, but it's actually about
that wasn't what
at the moment.
I know that's what both of you guys were thinking. I saw both of you smile as soon as I saw it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh boy.
He knows. My fixations.
Yes, I do.
I got all excited.
It's called
Robin Williams.
It's called ATM.
No, who is it?
It's like
Christmas
Christmas
Eve.
Booth.
Whatever that other.
Yeah,
sorry.
But it's about like an ATM booth where people go in and they get trapped inside, and there's a killer. It takes place on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And there's a killer waiting outside for them, and basically they can't leave the ATM booth because they're going to get killed. And one by one, as they leave the ATM, they start getting killed, and it turns into like an all-out Christmas Eve survival horror film. It's pretty good, actually. I mean, it's corny, but it's definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say it
fun.
sounds like it, Chris.
It is.
Sounds
Fuck you.
Sounds fantastic.
What about It's a Wonderful Life?
I was about to say, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Is definitely a horror film, though I wouldn't call it a horror film about the holidays. That's a horror film about everything that's unfair about life.
Yeah.
About everything that can go wrong to you in your life going wrong, and just finding a way to accept it. The character at the end, he isn't so much defeated as he he achieves self-actualization. He realizes all the things that have gone wrong in his life and accepts them for what they are when he's shown what a life would be, like you said, Scott, about what life would be if he didn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, and like the abuse that takes place with young George Bailey, with the pharmacist, that stuff.
The
and
hearing loss.
The hearing loss. Like, this is not an easy life for this guy. And you know, everything gets lost to the bank. All this bad stuff happens.
He wants to go overseas on a honeymoon with his wife, and he finds out that he's stuck taking care of the bank. He can't leave the town. He's trapped.
So for all intents and purposes, there are horror elements to this movie too.
Mm-hmm.
I can't ever watch this movie again, to be honest with you.
Too depressing.
It's depressing, but we watched this movie every Christmas Eve with my parents for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like I can recite that movie line for line. As much as I appreciate the story, and as much as I appreciate Jimmy Stewart in this movie, I mean, what a fucking powerful performance in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's grade A perfection across the board. Everything about the movie is perfect. The way it's shot, the way they could pull off such a progressive story so early on, you know?
Yeah.
But I just can't watch it again.
It took a few years for me to really get it. I felt like when I first saw it, I was too young to really understand what was going on and why these things that were happening to him would lead him to want to take his own life, because he contemplates it at one point in the whole movie is the intervention, the heavenly intervention with his guardian angel. But up to that point, the movie is just listing off all the things that went wrong in his life and all the reasons that he should have to kill himself. Yeah, it's pretty heavy stuff when you break it down. But yeah, great movie. One of the timeless greats, definitely. And yes, it is a horror film. I do agree.
Mm-hmm.
So one that we have not talked about, but I have not seen, but I don't see that we cannot talk about it tonight, and maybe this will be our last one, is Rare Exports.
Christmas Tale.
I have not seen this movie.
That either.
I haven't either.
Oh, yeah, I thought you did see it.
Nope.
Well, then.
We're fucking done.
Then we're fucking done here. Do you have any more we want to throw out there?
I'm going to throw Wake and Fright out there, even though the only Christmas element that it has is that it takes place during December and that there's a few Christmas trees, but it's set in the outback. And one major horror element of that film is that in the outback, it's an open desert and there's just nothing as far as the eye can see but desert. So they're celebrating Christmas in this open desert. And the movie's basically about a teacher who he's going to go back to New York. He stops in one town to get a beer, and he gets caught up in the drinking culture of Australia, and he just goes on this increasingly depraved downward spiral, including going on a drunken outback kangaroo hunt with real kangaroo hunting, real kangaroos being shot on camera.
Gross.
And lots of increasingly vile drunken behavior, like beer after beer after beer after beer. More drinking in this movie than any other film I've seen. And it was lost for decades, and it was slated to be destroyed when they rescued it at the last minute. It's from the director of First Blood, if that should tell you what kind of movie you're in store for. And technically it takes place during the holidays, but one thing the movie does really well is it shows how little that holiday means to Australia, because there's no snow, there's no winter. It's like being in the summer, but they're singing Christmas carols in the dead of summer. That
scares me.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It is weird.
It's so weird.
And of the movies we mentioned tonight, that's easily the most horrific one on the list. That's a total horror show.
When was this movie out?
1971. And it was lost for decades, and it was only recently discovered. And the last print that they discovered was very faded. It was very dark. So they had to really go through a lot of restoration work to bring it halfway back to life. And It got recently reappraised among re-releases. Like Martin Scorsese really praised it big time, and it was on a lot of top 10 lists for the year. But it was lost for almost 30 years, and there was a lot of dialogue about it being from the director of Rambo, like this was his first movie, and it being like his one movie that signified him as an auteur and not just a director for hire.
Right.
No.
So, getting off the horror topic, but staying on Christmas.
Yeah.
What are our favorite Christmas movies? Like, what movie do you watch every year at Christmas? Do you guys have any?
The Snowman.
Yeah, for me, it's Elf. Every year we have to watch Elf now.
The Ref.
The Ref?
Fucking
Yeah.
watch it every year.
See, I've got kids, so we always have to watch one movie.
The Ref. And I said this before the show, going off the horror subject of this. While it's not considered a Christmas movie, for some reason I watch The Godfather every Christmas because it is on the timeline. It is during Christmas.
Right.
There's a couple of scenes where Tom Hagen's carrying presents and stuff like that, and the Turk's like, "Oh, Tom Hagen, Merry Christmas," stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, is it a Christmas film? Not by far, but it's got that feel though.
It's got those elements to it.
But The Ref. It's
I have not seen that in
fucking
so
great
long.
movie. It's Dennis Leary is at the top of his game. I've never seen a person get so angry in a film before. It's fucking great, man. He cracks me up. He's so funny. Your husband isn't dead. He's hiding. I mean, there's so many great one-liners, and it's just a fun, and speaking of Kevin Spacey, yeah.
Oh, that's right. He's in that.
He's in
I
that
forgot.
movie. And he's got some great dialogue in that movie. He's got some great, when he flips out and starts going off on people.
Because he's the husband in it, right? Kevin Spacey?
Yeah.
Who's the wife? I can't remember.
Oh, I always forget her name. Wasn't she in Beetlejuice?
Gina Davis.
Not Gina Davis.
Winona Ryder?
No.
Catherine O'Hara?
Catherine O'Hara.
Okay.
It's Catherine O'Hara.
Who's also in Home Alone.
Yeah.
And A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
It's Judy Davis.
Must be totally fucked that whole thing. With Judy Davis?
It's Judy Davis.
Oh, God.
Judy Davis from
Catherine O'Hara. Who the hell is
Naked
that?
Lunch? Judy Davis?
Yes.
That's what it sounds
Who the hell's
like.
Catherine O'Hara then?
I don't know, but it's Judy Davis.
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah, it's Judy Davis, yo.
But The Ref just has some. Kevin Spacey delivers some really great lines.
My top Christmas movie, I mentioned it briefly, was the animated film The Snowman by Raymond Briggs. That was based off of his book, and it could have been Frosty the Snowman, but it winds up being this wordless musical
I remember seeing
exercise. It won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short, and I think a few years later, the same team of filmmakers got together to make the nuclear Holocaust animated film When the Wind Blows, which
That's
has
a horror movie.
Original music by David Bowie and Roger Waters. But anyway, it just captures the essence of the Christmas spirit and what it means for family members to get together and celebrate, and the memory of it. Even after they've gone, their lives have passed on. They leave behind these memories that'll be cherished forever.
I remember seeing that. It was beautiful. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. You can't really forget that.
Yeah.
Shitter's full. I mean, that's a class. I mean, another bit of Chevy Chase just flipping the hell out, which is just a.
We're gonna have the happiest Christmas and Bing Crosby tap dance with Danny fucking Kaye.
The part of that film that always had me is like the house that they were in took such a beating. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if that was me, I would have a heart attack just alone having that many people in the house. Yeah, that many people in the house just would screw me up, and all the horrible things that happens in that movie, the hilarious things that happens in that movie.
Here's a weird connection for you. We were talking about horror and Christmas. Did you know the composer for National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is Angelo Badalamenti?
Really?
David Lynch's composer, who regularly does all the creepy scores for Lynch's work. It was Badalamenti's doing for
Holy
Christmas
crap.
Vacation, and Diane Ladd's in it, another Lynch crony.
Wow.
As Chevy Chase's mother.
Yeah.
And
She's always good. She's good in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, that was, it was Randy Quaid's movie. He was basically playing himself because a few years later he went nuts.
He did.
Loudmouth freak. Yeah, but no, we watch Elf every year. I just love James Caan in that movie.
Yeah.
He's such a dick from the beginning until the end. And when that end scene happens, when they're at the park at the end, and he starts singing with everybody, I cry every time because I'm like, he's finally broke. He's finally a real dad. He's my dad. You're my dad. Yeah, that movie's awesome.
Can't forget A Christmas Story. I mean, I know it's an obvious one.
Yeah.
But it's a classic.
I think we're going to get into all those next on the next episode.
Yeah,
saw-
we'll riff on that. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I saw A Christmas Story at the theater this weekend. A few years back, we got the soundtrack on CD for A Christmas Story as a gift, and we tried listening to it, and I couldn't listen to it because it's all horror music. It's all like scary music, like all that little, all those little bits of music that you hear throughout, like when he's decoding the secret message and this horror music. All the music on the soundtrack is like that. I'm like, this is not listenable Christmas music.
Right.
So, in a way, you could make that argument that there's a horror element in A Christmas Story because that music is, on its own is played for scares, in my opinion.
Well, and the bad guy in that movie is scary as fuck too.
Zach Ward,
Yeah.
who later played one of the characters in Freddy vs. Jason, the guy who is coming out of the bathtub, and he also plays the killer in this film he directed, which I think we reviewed some time back.
That was horrible.
It was bad, but
I've talked to Zach a couple times. So
Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas is another one to throw out there. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that or not before.
which one?
Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Yep.
I don't want. Well, we're gonna probably visit this in another episode, but that right there is the motherfucker. We'll talk about that next time, though.
All right, everybody. This was episode 68. Not our best episode, but hey, we're back. You love us. That's all that matters.
This is a tougf subject.
It really is.
I told you that. And we talked about this earlier today, and I'm like, fuck you, Chris.
just wait for episode 69.
It's going to be tasty.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Oh, God.
Bye.
Stay hungry.
Merry Christmas, yo.
We're going to do another Christmas show,
Yeah.
aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
So maybe we should say Merry Christmas then.
We'll say Merry Christmas all month long.
Merry fucking Christmas.
Visit us at www.themoviesleuth.com and find The Movie Sleuth on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and iTunes.